The first time I realized I was truly alone, I was standing in the marble foyer of a house that wasn't mine, clutching a suitcase that held everything I owned. The echo of my footsteps bounced off the high ceilings, the kind of ceilings you only see in magazines, the kind that make you feel minor and temporary. I'd spent the last 6 months in this mansion, a gilded cage with velvet curtains and secrets in every shadow. Now, I was leaving, and the only thing heavier than my suitcase was the secret I carried inside me. I pressed my palm to my stomach, barely rounded, not yet visible beneath my coat. But I felt it, the flutter of new life, the echo of a heartbeat that wasn't just my own. I'd taken the test 3 days ago, in the guest bathroom with its gold-plated faucets and a mirror so large it made me look like a stranger. 2 pink lines. I'd stared at them until my vision blurred, until the world tilted and I had to sit on the edge of the tub, breathing in the scent of expensive soap and panic. I hadn't told anyone. Not even him. Especially not him. The car was waiting outside, engine idling, the driver's face hidden behind dark sunglasses. I'd planned every detail, every step, every lie. I told the housekeeper I was going to visit my sister in Connecticut. I told the security guard at the gate that I'd be back by Sunday. I told myself I could do this, that I could disappear, that he would never find me. But as the car pulled away from the mansion, the iron gates swinging shut behind me, I felt the weight of his gaze even though he wasn't there. Alexander Blackwell, the man who owned the house, the car, and the city skyline that glittered beyond the trees. The man who had swept me into his world with a smile that promised everything and eyes that warned of the cost. I met Alexander at a charity gala, the kind of event where everyone wore black, drank champagne, and pretended not to notice the cameras. I was there as a favor to my boss, a last-minute replacement for his wife, who'd come down with the flu. I wore a borrowed dress and shoes that pinched my toes, and I spent most of the night hiding behind a pillar, trying not to spill wine on the carpet. He found me anyway. He always found me. "You look like you're plotting an escape," he said, his voice low and amused. I looked up, startled, and found myself staring into eyes the color of storm clouds. He was taller than I expected, broader, with a presence that made the air feel charged. I laughed nervously and told him I was looking for the restroom. He smiled, and in that moment I felt seen in a way I never had before. That was how it started. A conversation in the corner of a crowded room, a dance I didn't remember agreeing to, a kiss that tasted like danger and possibility. He called me the next day, and the day after that, and soon I was spending weekends in his penthouse, weekdays in his bed, my life rearranged around the orbit of his. He was generous, attentive, and terrifyingly intense. He sent flowers to my office, gifts to my apartment, and when I protested, he only smiled and said, "I like taking care of what's mine." I should have run then. I should have seen the warning signs, the way he always knew where I was, the way his staff watched me with polite, unreadable faces, the way he never talked about his past. But I was in love, or something like it. And when he asked me to move in, I said yes. The mansion was beautiful, a palace of glass and stone perched on the edge of the city. It had everything, gardens, a pool, a library filled with books I'd never read. It also had rules, unspoken but ironclad. I was never to leave without telling him. I was never to answer the door. I was never to ask about the locked room at the end of the hall. At first, I told myself it was just his way of being. He was protective, not possessive. He cared, that was all. But as the weeks passed, the walls seemed to close in. I missed my friends, my job, the freedom to walk down the street without a shadow at my back. I missed being ordinary. The night I decided to leave, it was raining. I stood at the window, watching the storm lash the gardens, and I realized I couldn't stay. Not for him, not for the life he offered, not even for the child I hadn't planned. I packed my bag in silence, my hands shaking, and I wrote a note I knew he would never forgive. "I'm sorry. I can't do this. Please don't look for me." I left it on his pillow, the ink smudged by tears I refused to let fall. Then I slipped out the back door, my heart pounding, and I didn't look back. Now, as the city swallowed me, I tried to imagine a future where he didn't find me, where I could raise my child in peace, where I could be more than a secret, more than a possession. I tried to believe it was possible, but even as I stared out the window at the blur of lights and rain, I knew the truth. Alexander Blackwell didn't lose things, and he never ever let go. The city was a living thing, pulsing with energy and indifference. I watched the skyline recede in the rearview mirror, the mansion shrinking to a memory behind me. The driver didn't speak, his eyes fixed on the road, his hands steady on the wheel. I wondered if he knew. Suppose Alexander had told him to follow me, to report back, to bring me home if I strayed too far. Paranoia prickled at my skin, but I forced myself to breathe, to trust that I'd covered my tracks. I'd planned this escape for weeks, mapping out every detail in the quiet hours of the night while Alexander slept beside me. I'd memorized train schedules, researched bus routes, and found a small apartment in a neighborhood he'd never think to look. I'd changed my phone number, deleted my social media, and paid cash for everything. I'd even dyed my hair, trading honey blonde for a deep chestnut that made me look like someone else in the mirror. Someone braver. Someone who could survive this. The driver dropped me at the corner of a busy street, the rain still falling in sheets. I thanked him, my voice trembling, and hurried into the crowd, my suitcase bumping over cracked pavement. I didn't look back. I couldn't. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to disappear before he realized I was gone. My new apartment was nothing like the mansion. It was small, barely more than a studio, with peeling paint and a window that rattled in the wind, but it was mine. I locked the door behind me, slid the deadbolt into place, and let myself collapse onto the narrow bed. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of safety. Not free, not yet, but safe enough to breathe. The days blurred together. I found a job at a bakery 2 blocks away, the kind of place that opened before dawn and smelled like sugar and hope. The owner, Mrs. Patel, was kind but no nonsense, her sharp eyes missing nothing. She didn't ask questions about my past, and I didn't offer any answers. I worked hard, grateful for the distraction, for the ache in my feet and the flour dusting my clothes. It was honest work, and it kept my mind from wandering to the man I'd left behind. At night, I lie awake, one hand on my stomach, listening to the city outside my window. Sirens, laughter, the distant hum of traffic. I wondered if Alexander was looking for me. Suppose he'd read my note if he were angry, hurt, or determined. I asked if he'd ever loved me, or if I'd just been another possession, another thing to be controlled and displayed. I tried not to think about him, but he haunted my dreams. I saw his face in every crowd, heard his voice in every shadow. I woke gasping, tangled in sweat-soaked sheets, my heart racing with fear and longing. I missed him, even as I hated myself for it. I missed the way he looked at me, the way he touched me, the way he made me feel like I was the only person in the world who mattered. But I didn't miss the fear. I didn't miss the way he watched me, the way he made decisions for me, the way he closed doors and called it love. The weeks passed. My belly grew, a secret I carried beneath loose sweaters and careful smiles. I went to the clinic alone, sitting in waiting rooms filled with strangers, my hands shaking as I filled out forms. The doctor was kind, her voice gentle as she confirmed what I already knew. The baby was healthy. I was healthy. I should be happy. But happiness felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. I was always looking over my shoulder, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. I changed my route to work every day, avoided cameras, and paid cash for groceries. I told myself I was being careful, not paranoid. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was running from a man who had the resources to find anyone, anywhere. One morning, as I was unlocking the bakery, I felt a presence behind me. I spun around, my heart in my throat, but it was only Mrs. Patel, her arms full of flour sacks. She gave me a curious look but said nothing. I forced a smile, helped her inside, and tried to shake off the fear. But it lingered, a shadow at my back. I made friends at work, or something like it. There was Maria, who worked the counter and told stories about her children in Mexico. There was Ben, the delivery driver, who flirted shamelessly and made me laugh even when I didn't want to. They invited me out after work, but I always declined, claiming exhaustion or errands. I couldn't risk getting close. I couldn't risk anyone asking questions I couldn't answer. Still, their kindness chipped away at my loneliness. I began to believe I could build a life here, a small and quiet life where no one knew my name or my past. I started to think I could be happy. Then, one afternoon, as I was closing up the bakery, I found a single white rose on the counter. No note, no explanation. Just a rose, fresh and perfect, its petals still dewy. My hands shook as I picked it up, the scent sweet and familiar, Alexander's favorite flower, the one he always sent when he wanted to apologize, to remind me that I belonged to him. Panic surged through me. I scanned the street outside, searching for a black car, a familiar face, anything out of place. But there was nothing, just the ordinary bustle of the city, indifferent and oblivious. I threw the rose in the trash, locked the door, and ran all the way home. I barely slept that night. Every creak of the pipes, every distant siren, every footstep in the hallway outside my door sent my heart racing. I kept the lights on, my phone clutched in my hand, debating whether to call someone, anyone. But who would I call? The police? What would I say? A flower had appeared on my counter, and I was sure it meant my billionaire ex was hunting me. They'd laugh, or worse, they'd ask questions I couldn't answer without unraveling the fragile life I'd built. By morning, exhaustion had settled into my bones, but I forced myself out of bed. I had to keep moving and pretend everything was normal. I showered, dressed, and made my way to the bakery, my eyes scanning every face, every car, every shadow. The city felt different now, less like a refuge and more like a maze with no exit. Mrs. Patel noticed. She watched me with sharp, worried eyes as I fumbled with the register, burned a tray of croissants, and jumped every time the bell over the door rang. "You look tired, dear," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "You need to take care of yourself. The baby needs you strong." I nodded, unable to meet her gaze. If she suspected anything, she didn't press the issue. For that, I was grateful. The day dragged. Customers came and went, their faces blurring together. I tried to lose myself in the rhythm of work, kneading dough, frosting cakes, sweeping flour from the floor. But my mind kept drifting back to the rose, to the possibility that Alexander was closer than I'd dared to imagine. At lunch, Maria sat beside me in the cramped break room, her eyes kind. "You okay, Mija? You seem scared." I hesitated, the urge to confide almost overwhelming, but I couldn't. Not yet. Just tired, I lied. "Bad dreams." She squeezed my hand, her warmth a small comfort. "If you ever need anything, you tell me. We take care of each other here." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. I wanted to believe her, wanted to trust that I could lean on someone, but trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. That evening, as I walked home, I took a different route, weaving through side streets and alleys, and doubling back twice to ensure I wasn't being followed. The paranoia was suffocating, but I couldn't shake it. Not after the rose. Not after everything. When I reached my building, I paused at the entrance, scanning the street one last time. Nothing. Just the usual chaos. Honking cars, shouting neighbors, the distant wail of an ambulance. I hurried inside, locking the door behind me, and pressed my back to the cool wood, willing my heart to slow. I checked my phone. No messages, no missed calls. I tried to tell myself it was a coincidence, that the rose meant nothing. But deep down I knew better. Alexander didn't believe in coincidences. He believed in control. The next morning, I woke to a pounding at my door. My heart leapt into my throat. I crept to the peephole, holding my breath. It was Ben, the delivery driver from the bakery, his hands shoved in his pockets, his expression sheepish. "Sorry," he called through the door. "Didn't mean to scare you. Mrs. Patel asked me to check on you. You didn't show up for your shift." I glanced at the clock. Nearly noon. I'd overslept, my body finally succumbing to exhaustion. I opened the door a crack, relief and embarrassment warring inside me. "I'm fine, just overslept." He grinned, his usual effortless charm on display. "She said you'd say that. She also said to bring you this." He held up a paper bag, the smell of fresh bread wafting out. "And to tell you to rest. She's got things covered." I took the bag, my hands trembling. "Thank you." "Tell her I'm sorry," he shrugged. No worries. We all need a break sometimes. He hesitated, his gaze searching mine. If you ever need anything, help moving furniture, killing spiders, whatever, I'm around, I managed to smile. Thanks, Ben. I'll keep that in mind. He left, and I closed the door, sinking onto the bed with the bag of bread in my lap. I ate in silence, the simple meal grounding me and reminding me that there was still kindness in the world, even if I couldn't fully accept it. The rest of the day passed in a haze. I cleaned the apartment, did laundry, and tried to distract myself with a book, but my mind kept circling back to Alexander, to the rose, to the possibility that he was out there, watching, waiting. That night I dreamed of the mansion. I was back in the marble foyer, my suitcase in hand, Alexander standing at the top of the stairs, his eyes cold and unreadable. "You can't leave," he said, his voice echoing off the walls. "You're mine." I woke with a start, sweat slick on my skin, my heart pounding. I pressed a hand to my stomach, whispering a promise to the life growing inside me. I won't let him find us. I won't. But even as I said the words, I wasn't sure I believed them. The days that followed blurred together, each one marked by the same routine. Wake up, check the locks, walk to the bakery, keep my head down, come home before dark. I tried to convince myself that the rose had been a fluke, a cruel coincidence, but the fear never left me. It clung to my skin, a constant reminder that I was never truly safe. I started noticing things. A black car parked across the street that seemed to appear more often than not. A man in a suit is lingering by the corner store, pretending to read a newspaper. The feeling of eyes on me as I hurried down the sidewalk, my heart pounding in my chest. I told myself I was being paranoid, that the city was full of strangers and coincidences. But deep down, I knew better. One evening, as I was closing up the bakery, Maria pulled me aside. "You have someone looking for you," she whispered, her eyes wide with concern. "A man. Tall, expensive suit. He asked if you worked here." My blood ran cold. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing," she said quickly. "I said I didn't know you. But he left this." She handed me a business card, heavy and embossed with gold lettering. Alexander Blackwell. No phone number, no address, just his name, as if that was all anyone needed. I stared at the card, my hands shaking. He'd found me. Or at least he was close. I forced a smile for Maria's sake, thanked her, and tucked the card into my pocket. As soon as I was alone, I tore it into pieces and flushed it down the bakery's tiny bathroom sink. That night, I barely slept. Every sound outside my window made me jump. I kept the lights off, hoping to make myself invisible. I considered running again, packing my bag, disappearing into another city, another life. But I was tired of running. Tired of being afraid. I wanted to believe I could stand my ground and protect myself and my child. The next morning, I called in sick. Mrs. Patel didn't ask questions, just told me to rest and take care of myself. I spent the day pacing my apartment, checking the locks, peering through the blinds at the street below. The black car was gone, but the sense of being watched remained. By evening, I was restless, my nerves stretched to the limit. I decided to take a walk, hoping the fresh air would clear my head. I pulled on a coat, tucked my hair under a hat, and slipped out the back entrance of my building. The city was alive with noise and light, the chaos comforting in its anonymity. I wandered for blocks, letting the rhythm of the city soothe me. I stopped at a corner store for a bottle of water, exchanged a few words with the cashier, and continued, my mind finally beginning to quiet. Then I saw him. He was standing across the street, half in shadow, his posture unmistakable. Alexander. He hadn't changed, still tall, still impossibly handsome, still radiating that quiet, dangerous confidence. Our eyes met, and for a moment, the world fell away. I felt the old pull, the gravity that had drawn me to him in the first place. I turned and ran. I didn't look back. I darted through traffic, ignoring the shouts of angry drivers, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I ducked into an alley, my heart pounding, and pressed myself against the cold brick wall. I waited, listening for footsteps, for any sign that he was following me. Nothing. After what felt like an eternity, I crept out of the alley and made my way home, taking the long way, doubling back twice to make sure I wasn't being followed. When I finally reached my apartment, I locked the door behind me and slid to the floor, shaking. He'd found me. He knew where I was. It was only a matter of time before he came for me. I spent the next few days in a haze of fear and anticipation. I went to work, but I was distracted, jumpy, and always looking over my shoulder. Maria and Ben noticed their concern growing with each passing day. I wanted to tell them the truth, to ask for help, but I couldn't risk dragging them into my mess. Then, one afternoon, as I was leaving the bakery, I found Alexander waiting for me. He was leaning against a lamppost, his suit immaculate, his expression unreadable. "Hello, Claire," he said, his voice soft but commanding. I froze, my mind racing. "What are you doing here?" He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We need to talk." "I have nothing to say to you," I replied, my voice shaking. He stepped closer, his eyes never leaving mine. "You left without a word. You didn't even give me a chance to explain." "There was nothing to explain," I said, backing away. "I had to leave. I had to protect myself." He reached out, but I flinched away. "Claire, please, just listen." I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. "You don't get to do this. You don't get to show up and pretend like everything's fine." He looked at me, something like regret flickering in his eyes. "I'm not here to hurt you. I want to talk." I hesitated, torn between fear and the desperate need for closure. 5 minutes, I said finally. "That's all you get." We stood in the fading light, the city swirling around us, and for a moment, it felt like we were the only two people in the world. Alexander's presence was overwhelming, as always. He seemed to draw the air out of the space between us, leaving me breathless and unsteady. I kept my arms folded tightly across my chest, a barrier between us, but he didn't try to close the distance. He studied me, his gaze lingering on my face, my hair, the way I shifted my weight from foot to foot. "You look different," he said quietly, "but I'd know you anywhere." I forced myself to meet his eyes. "You shouldn't have come here." He nodded, a muscle ticking in his jaw. "I know, but you left me no choice. You disappeared, Claire. No note, no call. I woke up and you were just gone." I swallowed, the memory of that night sharp and painful. I had to leave. I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. I couldn't be what you wanted. He looked away, his hands clenching at his sides. "I never wanted to trap you. I just wanted to keep you safe." "Safe?" I laughed, the sound brittle. "You watched me, Alexander. You controlled everything. I wasn't living. I was surviving." He flinched just barely, but I saw it. "I know I made mistakes. I know I was intense. But you have to understand, Claire, I've lost people before. I couldn't lose you, too." I shook my head, tears threatening. "You never gave me a choice. You never asked what I wanted." He stepped forward, but stopped when I tensed. "I'm sorry. For everything. I need to know. Are you okay? Are you safe?" I hesitated, the truth heavy on my tongue. I wanted to scream at him, to tell him about the sleepless nights, the fear, the loneliness. But I also wanted to protect myself, to keep my secret for just a little longer. "I'm fine," I said finally. "I have a job. I have a place to live. I'm managing." He searched my face, as if looking for cracks in my armor. "You don't have to do this alone, Claire. Whatever happened between us, I still care about you." I looked away, unable to hold his gaze. "It's too late for that." He was silent for a long moment. The city moved around us, indifferent to our pain. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Is there someone else?" The question caught me off guard. "No, there's no one." He nodded, relief flickering across his features. "Then come home, please. We can start over. I'll do better this time. I'll give you space, freedom, whatever you need." I shook my head, my resolve hardening. "I can't. I won't go back to that life." He looked at me, desperation creeping into his eyes. "Claire, please. I can't lose you." I took a shaky breath, forcing myself to stand tall. "You already have." He closed his eyes, pain etched into every line of his face. When he opened them again, he looked older, more vulnerable than I'd ever seen him. If you ever need anything at all, just call me. I'll always come for you." I nodded, unable to speak. He reached into his pocket and pressed something into my hand, a small silver key. "For emergencies," he said softly. "It's to the penthouse. No one else has one." I stared at the key, the weight of it anchoring me to the past. "Goodbye, Alexander." He hesitated, as if he wanted to say more, but then he turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. I watched him go, my heart aching with 1,000 unspoken words. When I finally made it home, I locked the door behind me and slid to the floor, the key clutched in my fist. I pressed my hand to my stomach, whispering to the life growing inside me, "We're okay. We're safe. He's gone." But even as I said the words, I knew it wasn't over. Alexander Blackwell didn't give up. Not when he wanted something. Not when he believed it belonged to him. The next few weeks passed in a strange, suspended reality. I went to work, kept my head down, tried to pretend that nothing had changed, but I felt his presence everywhere. In the way the shadows seemed to lengthen at dusk, in the way my phone sometimes buzzed with unknown numbers, in the way my heart leapt every time the bakery door opened. I kept the key hidden in a drawer, but I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. It was a lifeline, a reminder of a world I'd left behind but could never fully escape. One night, as I lay in bed, I felt the baby move for the first time. A flutter, soft and tentative, like a secret shared in the dark. I pressed my hand to my belly, tears slipping down my cheeks. "You're real," I whispered. "You're really here." For the first time in months, I let myself hope. Maybe I could do this. Perhaps I could build a new life. Just the two of us. The days grew longer, the city shifting from the brittle chill of late winter to the tentative warmth of spring. I found comfort in the small routines of my new life. Waking before dawn to walk to the bakery, kneading dough in the quiet hush before sunrise, watching the world come alive through the fogged glass of the shop window. My belly grew rounder, a secret I could no longer hide beneath sweaters and coats. Maria noticed first, her eyes widening in surprise. One morning as I reached for a tray of pastries. "Claire," she whispered, her voice a mix of wonder and concern. "Are you—" I nodded, unable to keep the smile from my lips. "Yes, about 4 months now." She hugged me, her arms warm and strong. "You should have told me. We'll take care of you, mija. You're not alone." The words nearly undid me. I blinked back tears, grateful for her kindness, for the way she made me feel like I belonged. Mrs. Patel found out soon after, and from that day forward she insisted I take more breaks, pressed extra food into my hands, and scolded me gently if I tried to lift anything heavy. For a while, I let myself believe that this could be enough, that I could raise my child in this tiny apartment, surrounded by people who cared, even if they didn't know the whole story. I started to imagine a future, birthday parties in the park, bedtime stories, laughter echoing through rooms filled with sunlight. I let myself dream. But dreams are fragile things, easily shattered. One afternoon, as I was closing up the bakery, a man appeared at the counter. He was older, with graying hair and a kind smile, dressed in an expensive yet understated suit. He ordered a coffee, then lingered, watching me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "You're Claire, right?" he asked, his tone casual. I froze, my heart thudding in my chest. "I'm sorry, you must have me confused with someone else." He smiled, unbothered. "You're a hard woman to find. Alexander sends his regards." The world tilted. I gripped the edge of the counter, forcing myself to breathe. "I don't know who that is." He slid a business card across the counter, just like before. "He just wants to talk." "That's all?" No threats, no pressure. "He's worried about you." I stared at the card, my hands shaking. "Please leave." He nodded, his expression softening. "You're not in any danger, Claire. But you should know. He's not the only one looking for you." He left, the bell over the door jingling in his wake. I stood there, numb, the card burning a hole in my palm. When I finally looked down, I saw that it wasn't Alexander's name on the card this time. It was mine, Claire Bennett, and beneath it, in neat, precise handwriting, "You can't hide forever." I locked the door, drew the blinds, and called Mrs. Patel to say I was sick. Then I sat on the floor of my apartment, the card clutched in my fist, and let the fear wash over me. That night, I dreamed of the mansion again. This time, I was running through endless hallways, doors slamming shut behind me, Alexander's voice echoing through the darkness. "You can't run from me, Claire. You're mine." I woke gasping, tangled in sweat-soaked sheets, my heart pounding. I pressed a hand to my belly, whispering a promise to my child. "I won't let him take you." I won't, but the fear lingered, a shadow I couldn't shake. The next morning, I packed a bag, just in case. I tucked the key to the penthouse into a side pocket, along with my passport, some cash, and the ultrasound photo I'd kept hidden in a book. I didn't know where I would go, but I knew I needed to be ready. At work, Maria watched me with worried eyes. "You look tired, Mija. Are you sure you're okay?" I forced a smile. "Just a bad night. I'll be fine." But I wasn't fine. I was unraveling, the threads of my new life coming loose with every passing day. I checked the locks twice before bed, kept my phone charged and within reach, and jumped at every unexpected sound. I told myself I was being careful, not paranoid. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was being hunted. The city's noise became a constant companion, a shield against the silence of my fears. I tried to lose myself in the rhythm of daily life, but every time I glanced over my shoulder, I half expected to see Alexander's silhouette in the crowd. I started taking different routes to work, changing my schedule, avoiding the bakery's front window. I told myself it was just caution, but the truth was, I was terrified. One evening, as dusk settled over the city, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the packed bag by the door. My phone buzzed, startling me. "It was Maria. Are you home?" she asked, her voice tight. "Yes. Why?" "There's a man outside the bakery. He's been asking about you again. Mrs. Patel called the police, but he left before they arrived. Claire, I think you should stay with someone tonight." My breath caught. "I'll be okay. I promise. Just let me know if he comes back." After I hung up, I double-checked the locks and drew the curtains tight. I tried to eat dinner, but every bite turned to ash in my mouth. I sat on the edge of my bed, one hand on my belly, and tried to steady my breathing. I thought about calling Alexander. The key to the penthouse felt heavy in my bag, a silent promise of safety and danger all at once. But I couldn't bring myself to use it. I couldn't go back, not after everything I'd fought to escape. That night, sleep was impossible. I lay awake, listening to the city, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. What if Alexander wasn't the only one looking for me? What if someone else found me first? The man at the bakery, was he one of Alexander's people or someone more dangerous? At dawn, I made a decision. I couldn't keep living like this, trapped, afraid, waiting for the next shadow to fall. I needed help, not from Alexander, but from someone who could protect me without strings attached. I called Jenna, my oldest friend, the only person from my old life I still trusted. She answered on the second ring, her voice groggy with sleep. "Claire, is everything okay?" I hesitated, the words catching in my throat. "I need a place to stay, just for a few days. I can't explain everything right now, but—" "Say no more," she interrupted, her voice suddenly alert. "Come over. I'll make up the guest room." Relief flooded me. "Thank you, Jenna. I'll be there soon." I packed my bag, grabbed my coat, and slipped out of the apartment as quietly as I could. The city was waking up, the streets still empty and washed in pale light. I kept my head down, moving quickly, my heart pounding with every step. Jenna lived in a quiet neighborhood on the other side of the city, a world away from the chaos of my own street. Her apartment was warm and bright, filled with plants and sunlight. She hugged me tight when I arrived, her concern obvious. "You look exhausted," she said, guiding me to the couch. "Sit. I'll make tea." I sank into the cushions, the tension in my shoulders easing for the first time in weeks. Jenna returned with 2 mugs, her eyes searching mine. "Do you want to talk about it?" I shook my head, tears threatening. "Not yet, I need to feel safe for a little while." She nodded, squeezing my hand. "You're safe here." "I promise." For the next few days, I let myself rest. Jenna fussed over me, making sure I ate, insisting I take a nap. and distracting me with stories from her job and the latest neighborhood gossip. I felt the baby move more often now, each flutter a reminder of what I was fighting for. But even in Jenna's haven, the fear never entirely left me. I checked the windows, jumped at unexpected noises, and kept my phone within reach at all times. I knew it was only a matter of time before Alexander found me again. He always did. On the fourth night, as Jenna and I watched a movie, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You can't hide forever." My blood ran cold. I showed Jenna the message, my hands shaking. "Is it him?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, unable to speak. Jenna's jaw tightened. "We're going to the police. Tonight." I wanted to believe they could help, that a restraining order or a patrol car would be enough to keep Alexander at bay. But I knew better. He had money, power, and connections. The law was just another obstacle for him to overcome. Still, I agreed. I had to try. The police station was cold and impersonal, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead as Jenna and I sat side by side in hard plastic chairs. I clutched my bag to my chest, my fingers tracing the outline of the penthouse key through the fabric. A young officer took my statement, his eyes flicking between me and the notes he scribbled on a pad. "So you're saying your ex-boyfriend is stalking you?" he asked, his tone neutral but skeptical. I nodded, forcing myself to meet his gaze. "He's not just an ex. He's powerful. He has people watching me. He sent someone to my work. He sent me messages." The officer sighed, glancing at Jenna. "Do you have any proof? Any threats, physical harm?" I showed him the text message and the business card and described the man at the bakery. He took it all down, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. To him, I was just another woman with a complicated breakup, another case that would go nowhere. "We'll file a report," he said finally. "If he contacts you again, let us know. If you feel threatened, call 911. We'll send a patrol by your apartment and your friend's place just in case." It wasn't enough. I knew it, and so did Jenna. But it was all they could offer. We left the station in silence, the city's night air sharp and unforgiving. Jenna squeezed my hand as we walked back to her apartment. "You can stay as long as you need," she said. "We'll figure this out." I nodded, grateful for her support, but the fear gnawed at me. I knew Alexander. He wouldn't be deterred by police reports or patrol cars. If anything, it would only make him more determined. The next morning, I called Mrs. Patel and told her I needed more time off. She didn't ask questions, just told me to take care of myself and the baby. I spent the day at Jenna's, trying to relax, but every time my phone buzzed, my heart leapt into my throat. That afternoon, Jenna left for work, promising to check in every hour. I sat by the window, watching the street below, my nerves frayed. The hours crawled by. I tried to read, to nap, to distract myself, but nothing worked. Then, just as the sun was setting, there was a knock at the door. I froze, my breath caught in my chest. I crept to the peephole, my heart pounding. A deliveryman stood in the hallway, a bouquet of white roses in his hands. I opened the door a crack, the chain still in place. "Can I help you?" He smiled, holding out the flowers. "Delivery for Claire Bennett." I stared at the bouquet, my hands trembling. "Who are they from?" He shrugged. "No card, just instructions to deliver them to you." I took the flowers, my mind racing. As soon as the door was closed, I searched the bouquet, my fingers shaking. Tucked among the petals was a small envelope. Inside, a single note in Alexander's handwriting, "You belong with me. Come home." I dropped the note, my vision swimming. He'd found me. Again. When Jenna returned, she found me sitting on the floor, the roses scattered around me, the note crumpled in my fist. She knelt beside me, her arms wrapping around my shoulders. "We have to leave," I whispered. "He'll never stop. He'll never let me go." Jenna nodded, her voice fierce. "Then we'll go. Tonight, I'll drive." We packed in silence, moving quickly, efficiently. I grabbed my bag, the penthouse key, my passport, the ultrasound photo. Jenna loaded her car, her hands steady even as her eyes betrayed her fear. We drove through the night, leaving the city behind, the skyline shrinking in the rearview mirror. I watched the lights fade, my heart heavy with dread and relief. For the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could outrun him. But as the miles slipped by, I knew the truth. Alexander Blackwell always got what he wanted, and he wanted me. We drove for hours, the city lights giving way to the endless dark of the highway. Jenna kept her eyes on the road, her jaw set in determination. I watched the world blur past, my thoughts spinning in 1,000 directions. Every so often, I'd glance behind us, half expecting to see a black car in pursuit, headlights slicing through the night. But the road stayed empty. The only sound the hum of the engine and the soft, steady rhythm of my own breathing. We didn't talk much. There was nothing left to say. Jenna's presence was enough, a silent promise that I wasn't alone, that someone was on my side. I clung to that, even as fear gnawed at me from the inside out. By dawn, we reached a small town on the coast, the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names and the ocean was never far from sight. Jenna pulled into the parking lot of a modest motel, the neon sign flickering in the early morning light. She checked us in under a false name, paid in cash, and led me to a room at the end of a quiet hallway. Inside, the room was clean but sparse. A pair of twin beds, a battered dresser, a window that looked out over the empty street. I dropped my bag on the bed and sank beside it, exhaustion washing over me in waves. Jenna sat across from me, her eyes soft with concern. "We'll stay here for a few days," she said. "Let things cool off. If he's following us, he'll have a harder time finding us out here." I nodded, too tired to argue. I pressed a hand to my belly, feeling the baby move. A gentle reminder that I wasn't just running for myself anymore. The next few days passed in a blur. Jenna went out for groceries, keeping a low profile, while I stayed in the room, with the curtains drawn and my phone turned off. I tried to rest, but sleep was elusive. Every sound outside made me jump. Every knock at the door sent my heart racing. On the third day, Jenna returned from the store with a stack of newspapers. She tossed them onto the bed, her expression grim. "You're in the society pages," she said. "There's a photo of you and Alexander at some gala. The article says you're missing, that he's concerned for your well-being." I stared at the headline, my stomach twisting. There it was, my face, frozen in a moment of forced happiness. Alexander's arm around my waist, his smile practiced and perfect. The article painted him as a worried fiancé, desperate to find his lost love. There was no mention of the truth, no mention of the fear, the control, the suffocating grip he'd had on my life. "He's making you look like the unstable one," Jenna said, her voice tight with anger, "like you just ran off without a word." I crumpled the paper in my hands, tears stinging my eyes. He's always been good at controlling the narrative. Jenna sat beside me, her arm around my shoulders. "We'll figure something out. We'll find a way to make him stop." But I knew it wouldn't be that easy. Alexander had resources, connections, and a way of bending the world to his will. I was just one woman, pregnant and alone, hiding in a motel room at the edge of the world. That night, as I lay awake listening to the sound of the ocean, I made a decision. I couldn't keep running forever. I had to find a way to end this, to take back control of my life, for my sake and for my child's. The next morning, I called a lawyer. I found her number in the phone book, her ad promising help for women in trouble. Her name was Evelyn Grant, and her voice was calm and reassuring as I explained my situation to her. "You're not the first woman to call me with a story like this," she said, "and you won't be the last. I can help you, Claire, but you have to be willing to fight." I swallowed, fear and determination warring inside me. "I'm ready. I have to be." Evelyn explained my options: restraining orders, safe houses, legal protections. She warned me that it wouldn't be easy, that Alexander's money and influence would make things difficult. But she promised to stand by me, to help me navigate the maze of the legal system. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I couldn't outrun Alexander, but maybe, just maybe, I could outsmart him. Evelyn moved quickly. Within a day, she'd filed for a restraining order and connected me with a network of women's shelters and advocates. She explained how to document everything, every message, every unwanted contact, every time I saw someone watching me. The more evidence we have, she said, the harder it will be for him to twist the story. Jenna helped me set up a new phone, one that Alexander couldn't trace. We used cash for everything, avoided cameras, and kept our location secret. The motel manager, a kindly older woman named Mrs. Green, took pity on us, offering extra towels and a sympathetic ear. She didn't ask questions, just smiled and told us to let her know if we needed anything. For a while, it felt like we were winning. I started to relax, just a little. I took walks on the beach in the early morning, the salt air clearing my head. I let myself imagine a future where I could raise my child in peace, where I could be more than a shadow in someone else's story. But Alexander was never far from my thoughts. Every time the phone rang, every time a car slowed outside the motel, my heart leapt into my throat. I knew he was still looking for me. I knew he wouldn't stop until he found me. One afternoon, as I sat on the motel bed sorting through paperwork for Evelyn, Jenna burst into the room, her face pale. "He's here," she whispered. "I saw him. He's talking to Mrs. Green at the front desk." Panic surged through me. I grabbed my bag, my hands shaking. "We have to go, now." Jenna nodded, already moving. We slipped out the back door, cutting through the alley behind the motel. I kept my head down, my heart pounding in my chest. We made it to the car, Jenna fumbling with the keys as I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see Alexander's face in the crowd. We drove for hours, taking back roads and side streets to avoid highways and cameras. We ended up in another small town, another cheap motel, another name on the register. I called Evelyn, my voice trembling as I explained what had happened. "You did the right thing," she said. "But you can't keep running forever, Claire. At some point you have to stand your ground." I knew she was right. But the thought of facing Alexander, of confronting the man who had haunted my every waking moment, was almost more than I could bear. That night I dreamed of the mansion again. This time I was in the nursery, the walls painted a soft, hopeful blue. I held my baby in my arms, but when I looked up, Alexander was standing in the doorway, his eyes cold and triumphant. "You can't keep her from me," he said. "She's mine." I woke with a start, tears streaming down my face. Jenna sat beside me, her hand on my back, murmuring soothing words. "You're safe," she whispered. "He can't hurt you here." But I wasn't sure I believed her. The next morning, Evelyn called with news. "The restraining order was granted," she said. "It's a start, but you need to be careful. He's already hired lawyers. He's trying to paint you as unstable, unfit to be a mother." I felt the world tilt beneath me. "He can't do that. He doesn't even know—" "He'll try," Evelyn interrupted gently. "But we'll fight him, I promise." I spent the day gathering documents, medical records, pay stubs, letters from Mrs. Patel and Maria, attesting to my character. Jenna wrote a statement, describing everything she'd witnessed. I sent it all to Evelyn, hoping it would be enough. That evening, as I walked along the beach, I felt the baby move again. A strong, insistent kick that made me smile through my tears. "We'll be okay," I whispered. "I'll protect you, no matter what." But as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, I knew the fight was far from over. Alexander Blackwell was coming for me. And this time, I would have to face him. The following week passed in a blur of legal calls, restless nights, and anxious waiting. Evelyn was relentless, guiding me through every step, her calm voice a lifeline in the storm. She prepared me for the worst: court hearings, custody threats, the possibility that Alexander would use every resource at his disposal to break me down. But she also reminded me of my strength, of the reasons I'd left, of the life I was fighting to build for my child. Jenna stayed by my side, her loyalty unwavering. She made sure I ate, forced me to rest, and distracted me with stories from our college days. Sometimes, late at night, we'd sit on the motel balcony, watching the waves crash against the shore, and she'd remind me that I wasn't alone. "You're stronger than you think, Claire," she'd say. "You've already survived so much." But the fear never left me. Every time the phone rang, every time a car pulled into the parking lot, I braced myself for the worst. I kept the penthouse key, hidden in my bag, a last resort I prayed I'd never have to use. Then, one morning, Evelyn called with news that made my blood run cold. "Alexander's lawyers have filed for emergency custody," she said. "They're claiming you're unstable, that you've disappeared without explanation, that you're a danger to yourself and the baby." I felt the world tilt beneath me. "That's not true. He's the one—" "I know," Evelyn said gently. "But he's powerful, Claire. He knows how to manipulate the system. We need to be ready. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation." Evelyn arranged for me to meet with a counselor, to document my mental health and my ability to care for my child. She gathered statements from Mrs. Patel, Maria, and Jenna, all attesting to my character and the lengths I'd gone to protect myself and my baby. Jenna drove me to the appointments, her presence a steady comfort. "You're doing everything right," she assured me. "He can't take your baby, not after everything he's done." But I wasn't so sure. Alexander's reach was long, his influence deep. I'd seen what he could do, how easily he could bend the truth to suit his needs. The court date arrived faster than I expected. Evelyn met us outside the courthouse, her expression fierce and determined. "Remember, Claire," she said, squeezing my hand. "Tell the truth. Don't let him intimidate you. You have every right to protect yourself and your child." Inside, the courtroom was cold and sterile, the air thick with tension. Alexander sat at the front, his suit immaculate, his expression unreadable. He didn't look at me as I entered, but I felt his presence like a physical weight. The hearing was a blur, lawyers arguing, witnesses testifying, the judge asking questions I struggled to answer. Alexander's lawyer painted me as unstable, reckless, a woman on the run. Evelyn countered with evidence of his control, his surveillance, the fear that had driven me to leave. When it was my turn to speak, I stood trembling, my hands clasped protectively over my belly. I told the judge everything, about the mansion, the rules, the way Alexander had watched and controlled me, the fear that had haunted me every day. I spoke of my love for my child, of the life I wanted to build, of the hope that had kept me going even when everything seemed lost. When I finished, the courtroom was silent. The judge studied me for a long moment, then turned to Alexander. "Mr. Blackwell, do you have anything to say?" Alexander stood, his gaze finally meeting mine. For a moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Regret, maybe, or something softer. But when he spoke, his voice was cold and measured. "I only want what's best for Claire and the baby," he said. "I want them safe. I want them home." The judge nodded, making notes on the file. "I'll review the evidence and make a decision. Until then, Ms. Bennett retains full custody. Mr. Blackwell, you are not to contact her directly or indirectly." Relief flooded me, so intense it left me dizzy. I clung to Jenna as we left the courthouse, tears streaming down my face. For the first time, I felt a sense of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could win. The days after the hearing felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from my chest. Jenna and I returned to the motel, and for the first time in months, I allowed myself to take a breath. Evelyn called every day with updates, her voice steady and reassuring. "The judge is reviewing everything," she said. "You did well, Claire. No matter what happens, you've shown how much you love your child." I tried to focus on the small joys: morning walks on the beach, the salty wind in my hair, the gentle roll of the baby beneath my hand. Jenna insisted on celebrating every milestone, no matter how small. She brought home cupcakes from a local bakery, decorated with tiny pink and blue sprinkles. "For you and the little one," she said, grinning. "We're making new memories." I let myself believe for a little while that we were safe. I started to imagine a future again. A nursery painted in soft colors, lullabies sung in the quiet hours of the night, laughter echoing through a home that was truly mine. I called Mrs. Patel and Maria to update them on my situation. Their voices were full of relief and encouragement. "You're stronger than you know, Claire," Maria said. "We can't wait to meet your baby." But the shadow of Alexander lingered. I knew he wouldn't give up so easily. He was a man used to getting what he wanted, and I was the one thing he couldn't control. I checked the news every morning, searching for any mention of my name, any sign that he was trying to sway public opinion. The society pages were quiet, but I knew better than to trust the silence. One evening, as Jenna and I sat on the balcony watching the sunset, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You can't hide forever. I will find you." My hands shook as I showed Jenna the message. Her face hardened. "He's trying to scare you. Don't let him win." I nodded, but the fear was back, sharp and cold. I forwarded the message to Evelyn, who promised to add it to the growing file of evidence. "This only helps our case," she said. "He's showing his true colors." But the message was a reminder that Alexander was still out there, still searching, still determined to bring me back into his world. A week later, the judge's decision arrived. Evelyn called, her voice trembling with excitement. "You won, Claire. Full custody. The restraining order stands. He can't come near you or the baby." I sank to the floor, tears streaming down my face. Jenna hugged me, laughing and crying at the same time. "You did it," she whispered. "You're free." For the first time, I believed it. I was free. Free to build a life for myself and my child. Free to choose my own path. Free from the shadow of Alexander Blackwell. But freedom was a strange, fragile thing. I still checked the locks twice before bed, still jumped at unexpected noises, still kept the penthouse key hidden in my bag. I knew Alexander. I knew he wouldn't give up so easily. As my due date approached, Jenna helped me find a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood. It wasn't much, just 2 rooms and a tiny kitchen, but it was mine. I painted the nursery myself, soft yellow walls and white curtains, a crib by the window where the morning light would fall. I filled the shelves with books, the drawers with tiny clothes, the air with hope. Mrs. Patel and Maria visited, bringing gifts, stories, and laughter. They fussed over me, over the baby, over the new apartment. For a few precious weeks, I let myself believe that the worst was behind me. But on the morning of my wedding, everything changed. The morning of my wedding dawned bright and clear, sunlight streaming through the curtains and painting golden stripes across the nursery floor. I woke to the sound of birds outside my window, the gentle flutter of the baby inside me, and the soft hum of excitement that filled the apartment. Jenna was already up, bustling around the kitchen, her laughter drifting down the hallway as she chatted with Maria and Mrs. Patel, who had arrived early to help with preparations. I sat on the edge of my bed, my hands resting on my belly, and tried to steady my nerves. Today was supposed to be a new beginning, a promise of safety, of love, of a future I'd fought so hard to claim. My fiancé, Daniel, was everything Alexander was not: gentle, patient, steady as the tide. He knew my story, every broken piece, and loved me not despite it, but because of it. He had proposed quietly, in the park where we'd first met, slipping a simple gold band onto my finger as the sun set behind the trees. "You and the baby are my family," he'd whispered. "Let's build something new together." I wanted to believe that happiness was possible, that the past could finally be put to rest. I let Jenna help me into my dress, a simple flowing gown that skimmed my growing belly, with soft lace at the sleeves and a ribbon tied just above my waist. Maria pinned flowers in my hair. Mrs. Patel pressed a warm mug of tea into my hands, and for a moment, surrounded by the women who had become my family, I felt safe. The ceremony was small, just a handful of friends gathered in the garden behind our building. Daniel waited for me beneath an archway of white roses, his eyes shining with love and hope. As I walked toward him, my heart swelled with gratitude for this chance, for this life, for the baby who had given me the courage to run and the strength to stay. The vows were simple, spoken in voices thick with emotion. Daniel promised to love and protect me, to cherish our child, to build a home filled with laughter and light. I promised to trust him, to let him in, to believe in the future we were creating together. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, the world seemed to pause, sunlight glinting off the gold band on my finger, the air thick with the scent of roses and hope. We celebrated with cake and music, laughter echoing through the garden as friends toasted to new beginnings. For the first time in years, I felt truly seen, truly loved, truly free. But as the sun dipped below the horizon and the guests began to leave, a chill crept through the air. Jenna squeezed my hand, her eyes searching mine. "Are you all right?" she asked softly. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Just tired. It's been a long day." She hugged me, whispering, "You deserve this, Claire. Don't let anyone take it from you." As night fell, Daniel and I slipped away to our apartment, the baby kicking gently as he carried me over the threshold. We laughed, breathless and giddy, as we collapsed onto the couch, the weight of the day settling around us like a warm blanket. But as I reached for the light, a shadow moved outside the window. My heart stuttered, fear prickling along my skin. I told myself it was nothing, a trick of the light, a neighbor passing by. But deep down, I knew. Alexander had found me. The knock came just after midnight, sharp and insistent. Daniel moved to answer, but I stopped him, my hand trembling on his arm. "Let me," I whispered. I opened the door to find Alexander standing in the hallway, his suit immaculate, his eyes dark and unreadable. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The world seemed to narrow to the space between us, the past and present colliding in a single breathless instant. "Congratulations," he said, his voice low and smooth. "You look beautiful, Claire," I swallowed, my throat tight. "What are you doing here?" He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I came to see you, to see the woman who thought she could escape me." Daniel stepped forward, his presence solid at my side. "You need to leave," he said, his voice calm but firm. "You're not welcome here." Alexander's gaze flicked to Daniel, then back to me. "You think this is over? You think a wedding and a new name can erase what we had?" I stood tall, my fear burning away in the face of his arrogance. "It's over, Alexander. I'm not yours. I never was." He laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "You can't run from me, Claire. You can't hide. I will always find you." I met his gaze, steady and unflinching. "Not this time. I have a family now. I have people who love me. You can't hurt me anymore." For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Regret, maybe, or the ghost of the man I'd once loved. But then it was gone, replaced by the cold certainty I remembered all too well. He stepped back, his expression unreadable. "We'll see," he said softly. "We'll see." He turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. I closed the door, locking it behind him, my hands shaking. Daniel pulled me into his arms, his voice a steady anchor. "He's gone, Claire. He can't touch you. Not anymore." I nodded, tears slipping down my cheeks. "I believe you," I whispered. "I have to." But as I lay awake that night, the baby moving gently inside me, I knew the fight wasn't over. Not yet, but for the first time I wasn't running. I was standing my ground, surrounded by love, ready to face whatever came next. The days after Alexander's midnight visit passed in a haze of tension and fragile hope. I told myself he was gone, that the restraining order and the new life I'd built would be enough to keep him at bay. Daniel was vigilant, never letting me walk alone, checking the locks twice before bed, holding me close when nightmares woke me in the dark. Jenna stayed over most nights, her presence a comfort, her laughter a shield against the shadows that sometimes crept in around the edges of my happiness. But the fear lingered, a low hum beneath the surface of every ordinary moment. I watched the street from our window, searching for unfamiliar cars, for the glint of a camera lens, for any sign that Alexander was still watching. I kept my phone charged, my bag packed with essentials, the penthouse key still hidden in the back of a drawer, a relic of a life I never wanted to return to, but couldn't quite let go. As my due date approached, the baby's movements grew stronger, more insistent. Each kick was a reminder of the future I was fighting for, of the promise I'd made to protect this new life at any cost. Daniel painted the nursery walls a soft green, his hand steady, his voice gentle as he read stories to my belly each night. We built a crib together, hung curtains, and folded tiny clothes into drawers. For the first time, I let myself believe that we could be happy and safe. The morning my labor began, the world outside was quiet, the sky a pale, hopeful blue. Daniel drove me to the hospital, his hand never leaving mine, his words a steady stream of reassurance. Jenna met us there, her arms full of flowers and snacks, her eyes bright with excitement and worry. The hours blurred together, pain and fear and hope all tangled into one long, breathless wait. When the baby finally arrived, a perfect wailing miracle, I wept with relief and joy. Daniel held our daughter, his tears falling onto her tiny, wriggling form. Jenna snapped photos, her laughter filling the room, and for a moment, the world was nothing but light, love, and the promise of new beginnings. We named her Grace. She had Daniel's eyes and my stubborn chin, a fierce little grip that wrapped around my finger and refused to let go. I held her close, whispering promises into her soft hair. You are safe. You are loved. No one will ever hurt you. The hospital room was filled with visitors. Mrs. Patel and Maria brought gifts and stories. The nurses cooed over Grace, and Daniel's parents arrived with balloons and tears of joy. For the first time, I felt surrounded by family, people who would stand with me no matter what. But even in that moment of happiness, a shadow lingered. On the second night, as I rocked Grace to sleep, a nurse entered with a small envelope. This was left at the front desk for you, she said, her voice gentle. My heart stuttered as I opened it. Inside was a single white rose and a note in Alexander's familiar handwriting. I will always love you. Take care of her. I stared at the words, 1,000 emotions warring inside me, fear, anger, sorrow, relief. I pressed the note to my chest, then tore it into pieces, letting them fall into the trash. I looked down at Grace, her eyes wide and trusting, and knew that, whatever Alexander's intentions, he no longer had power over me. We brought Grace home to the little apartment, the nursery filled with sunlight and hope. Daniel and I took turns feeding her, changing her, and singing her to sleep. Jenna visited every day, her laughter filling the rooms, her love a constant presence. The days settled into a new rhythm. Bottles and diapers, lullabies and laughter. The quiet, steady joy of building a life together. I still checked the locks at night, still watched the street from the window, but the fear no longer ruled me. I was stronger now, forged by everything I'd survived. I had a family, a home, a future worth fighting for. On our first wedding anniversary, Daniel surprised me with a picnic in the park where he'd proposed. We sat beneath the trees, Grace crawling in the grass, the sun warm on our faces. Daniel took my hand, his eyes shining with love. We made it, he whispered. You're safe. She's safe. We're together. I smiled, tears slipping down my cheeks. We're free. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, I held Grace in my arms and watched Daniel chase her through the grass. I thought of everything we'd endured, the fear, the running, the nights spent wondering if happiness was even possible. I thought of Alexander, of the mansion, of the life I'd left behind, and I knew finally that I had won. I had escaped. I had built something new, something substantial, something beautiful. I was no longer a prisoner of my past. I was a mother, a wife, a survivor, and as I watched my family laugh in the fading light, I knew that no matter what shadows lingered, love would always be stronger.